Again, I give you guys the solutions. So I will elaborate a little bit more on some of these, but most of these were just, if it wasn't a matter of recognition or description, it was just solving an equation. Okay. So this first piece right here, well, angle one is right here. And if you want to use three letters to represent the angle here at A, you would put the A in the middle. So the one on the left has a C in the middle, which means it's referring to the angle 2. So that's the only one that doesn't belong with the other three because it's referring to a different angle. The other three are referring to the angle here at 1, or you want to call it the letter A. And you could actually just say angle A because in this diagram, there's only one angle that could be. You use the three letters if you want to be more clear, especially when you have a more complicated diagram. Okay, so then here you guys can see the answers, right? And so notice number 3, the B's are in the middle. Angle B, B's in the middle of the other two. Angle G, notice the G's are in the middle. And then sometimes you had a number as an option, right? So if you want to call it angle K, the other two with letters would have the K in the middle. Okay, and then you had the 9 through 12 interpreting the protractor. And again, I know you guys can see the answers. And it turned out all of the choices were acute. All of the choices had angles less than 90 degrees. Okay, so all these had the O in the middle. So it's because all the angles, the lines connected to the same letter O in the middle. All right, so AOC, right? Well, since A is a baseline, you can rotate from 0 to where C is, and that would be 30 degrees. And you got the BOD, right? BOD, again, the B line is a baseline, so you can rotate from B to D. So you could think about going from 0 to somewhere in between 60 and 70, and it looks like that's about 65, right? So you can see that's true. Okay, then once you got to 11, COD, you didn't have a baseline. So if you're going from C to D, you can think, okay, well, starting at 30, we rotated over here to 115. So then subtract 115 minus 30. And that's how you would get 85. Okay, and the same thing with EOD, EOD. So E is not a baseline. So you can rotate from E to D. You're going from 40 to 65. So subtract. Okay, and then the next part here, you can see the sophisticated response that the book provided, right? But BOC, so BOC, a lot of times people react to the first thing they see. Well, BOC, that's bigger than 90. So pick the bigger number. People will pick 30 because that's the first number they see, right? So think about how big this should be before you pick a number. And then DOE is 65. Well, DOE, okay, well, what they did is they just said, okay, let me just pick the number I see here. But you didn't go from E to D by starting at a baseline. You started at 40. You didn't start at 0. So if you're going from 40 to 65, subtract. Okay, and you can see the book has a more complicated way of doing that. Basically, bigger number minus smaller number. That's the same thing as subtracting and taking the absolute value. So this is a more sophisticated way of expressing the answer, which is good to be aware of, but it's not necessary. Okay, so then the rest you had from 21 to 39, but only the odds. Okay, so this is just a matter of if you have the larger angle, then just subtract or divide by 2. But if you have the two smaller angles, you would add these, and that would get you the larger angle. Okay, same thing here. If you knew the larger angle was RST, then you could find the other missing angle on the left side by subtracting 72. Okay, and then here's same thing. They tell you the larger angle ABC, so that means you add these two expressions and equal 95. Again, you can see your solutions when you solve for x. Straight angle, so that means these two combine to be 180 degrees. So you add equal 180 degrees. This is a right angle, just like the warm-up. These two combine to be 90, so you add these two expressions to combine to be 90. All right, now the numbers you see over here, notice they give you two numbers, and that's because once they solve for x, they replace the expression x in each angle to find out the actual numerical value. So that's why you see 2-degree measurements. Okay, and then the same thing here. In this case, the idea is bisection. So for number 3 here, if the PQ bisects the larger angle and you're given PQS, that means if a smaller angle is 63, then that means this other angle would have had to be 63. And so to find the larger angle, PQR, you would multiply 63 times 2, because if these two are 63 because of the bisection, that means the larger angle would be 2 times 63. And then here for 35, they gave you the larger angle, PQR, and since the QS bisects, that means just divide this by 2 to get the others. Okay, and then the same thing here, since bisection means cut into 2 congruent angles, that means this expression equals that expression. So just put these two expressions equal to each other. And again, the reason why they're giving you 3 answers is because there's the 2 separate angles, which are the same. That's why these are the same. And then the larger angle, which is combining the 2 smaller angles. That's why you can just double one of the smaller angles. Okay. Now, I'll elaborate what this language here means in a moment. So this symbol with the little squiggly line above the equal symbol, why they write the letter M there. I'll elaborate that a little bit more in a minute. Okay, now when you're looking at this problem, you might not have interpreted the geometrical symbols here. So when you have these 2 little curve markings, that implies those 2 angles are congruent. And that might not have been something that you realized. This language is new to you. So for instance, if you have something like this, if we wanted these 2 angles to be different instead of the same, what people do is they put a little curve a second time. So this would imply these 2 angles are not the same. And that's just what people do geometrically. They do that because if we put little tick marks, that's a little cumbersome. All right, well, although this would be okay. This would be another way to indicate those 2 are not the same. Okay, whereas this would indicate they are the same. They both have 1 tick marks. Okay, but people prefer to use curvature. So these are called 1 angles because they both have 1 curve, whereas this would be called a 2 angle because it has 2 curves. And in this case, we can't assume angle 1 is the same as angle 2, whereas this we can because we're using only 1 curve for each. So you may not have caught that. That's what the implication of this diagram meant. So that means these are both 46. Well, if those are both 46, well, how can you get 180 degrees? Because 46 plus 46 is 92, and 92 plus 90 is not 180. So there's no way this could be a straight angle because the geometrical markings of the 1 curves imply congruence. That implies this other angle is 46. So what you can do, well, don't assume this other angle is congruent. Make this other angle 44, and then you'll be able to get 180. And that's what the sophisticated language is talking about. Okay? And they had another way to make part B work. They just said, okay, we'll just make this other angle 45, and then they can both be congruent. So this little symbol means congruence. This is saying the angle on the left is congruent as the angle on the right. That's what that little squiggly symbol above the equals means. Okay, and congruent means has the same measure. Geometrically, they are the same size. That's what congruent means. Whereas when you put the little m in here, that means the measurement of this angle has this numerical value. And so we can equal a numerical value, so we use the regular equal system, right? And so this is basically the reason why part A won't work. This is more mathematical. The measurement of the first angle plus the measurement of the second angle plus the measurement of the third angle, right, is not equal to 180. So these three angles do not equal 180. Okay. So the letter M here means the measurement of, and then this little squiggly sign over the equal, that means congruent. These two geometric shapes, these two things in geometry have the same size.